Good morning, everybody. Meteorologist Jim Dickey here at the ABC7 Hurricane Center with another edition of Tracking the Tropics. It is busy out there in the Atlantic, so let's get right to it. Whole lot to talk about. Of course, still three named storms on the board. Umberto, tropical depression, Imelda, still technically a depression as it's bringing flooding rainfall to East Texas. And then Tropical Storm Jerry, you see it there right in the center of your screen in the eastern tropical Atlantic. Two other areas that we're watching. One circled there over Hispaniola, really a cluster of thunderstorms that isn't expected to develop, but we'll be keeping an eye on it. And then a second area, well out in the eastern Atlantic, to the southeast of Jerry, that will have a chance to come together by the time we get to the weekend and next week. So plenty of time to watch that one too. Let's begin with Umberto, still a major hurricane. Let me move that for you. There's a look at Umberto here this morning, the 5M advisory. Winds 125 miles per hour. The storm is moving to the north and east at 22 miles per hour. It is racing its way out of here. So look at the cone of concern with Umberto. It continues to track north and eastward here over the next couple of days and is moving away from Bermuda. There's Bermuda back behind it. It is moving away from the area now. We'll continue to do so as we go into and through the weekend. There's Sunday. This is likely when it falls apart over the North Atlantic. It's moving into cooler waters, so while it did hold on to that major hurricane status at the latest advisory at 5 a.m. this morning, you see there the 2 p.m. advisory. It's expected to weaken back down to a Category 2, and this begins a weakening phase leading to the breakdown of the storm over the weekend. So that'll be just about it with Umberto. No other direct impacts to land from that storm. Meanwhile, let's talk about Imelda. So this is a good lesson in that you don't have to have a major hurricane, like say Umberto right now, to produce huge impacts. Imelda was named just before it made landfall. It barely got to tropical storm strength. And still, this is going to be one of the most impactful storms the United States, I think, sees this hurricane season. Look at all the rainfall it's producing right now on radar. I'll loop back for you. Back to the past 40 minutes for you on this radar lapse. That rain barely moving. It's called training thunderstorms. You see from College Station through the Beaumont area, those cells just lining up, moving over the same locations one after another. And those maroon polygons you see, flash flood warnings out across much of southeast Texas here this morning. And the rain totals are just really terrifying, really, when you get down to it. This is so far what many spots have seen. So east of Houston to Beaumont, there's that little pocket there where black is showing up. So much rainfall that it goes out of the color scheme of this product. An estimate of 29.3 inches of rain. Beaumont itself, 18 inches of rain. You see another area of 24.5. Heard reports, some spots seeing water, seeing flooding, taking on flooding that didn't see that during Harvey. And these are many of the same areas that saw the very heavy rainfall from Hurricane Harvey going back to 2017. So, yeah, very dangerous flooding situation ongoing here in East Texas today. And you can see there's still more rain to come. Now, the center of Imelda is tracking away to the north, so the bullseye of rain today is going to be off to the north of Beaumont. But we're going to see widespread areas seeing 20-plus inches of rainfall, I think, before all is said and done. That 31 is probably overstated, but it speaks to the fact that the models are picking up on these ingredients in place for this historic rainfall and this continued dangerous flooding. So again, the takeaway from Imelda, you don't need a hurricane to get devastating impacts from a landfalling tropical system. Flooding rain is often the most deadly and dangerous part of any landfalling tropical system. That unfortunately the case here with Imelda in East Texas. Now here's Jerry, still a tropical storm as of the 8 a.m. advisory, but it's just on that threshold of being named a hurricane. 70-mile-per-hour winds. It's moving quickly to the west-northwest at 16 miles per hour. And if you sort of just draw a straight line, it stays on that trajectory and is expected to just miss the northern Caribbean islands and Puerto Rico as it does continue on that path. So here's the steering winds today. High pressure, the Atlantic Ridge. Each and every storm we've talked about, I feel like so far this year, we've talked about that Atlantic Ridge and how it's going to steer that storm to the northwest. It's fairly far north. So that is allowing this to come north here too. If this were stronger and further to the south, we'd be talking about Jerry going right into the Caribbean, but not going to be the case with this one, thanks to the positioning and the relative strength of that high pressure area. And then this is by the time we get to Monday. The Atlantic high backs off a little bit. There's a new high pressure area wedging into the Gulf of Mexico, and that's going to sort of block Jerry from getting any further to the west. It's going to look for the weakness between those two high pressure areas. It'll find it to the north, and that's the path it's going to take, the path of least resistance, so to say. Just about every single model you look at showing that similar path, that similar turn. These are, again, your spaghetti plots. Each line marks an individual model forecast, and each line is showing that turn to the north as we get into next week. Take a look, too. There are some hurdles in the way of Jerry as we go through the next couple of days. First of all, some wind shear. That's the red you're seeing. We talk about wind shear. We're talking winds changing with strength and direction as you go up in the atmosphere. Tropical systems, when we vertically stacked, when you bring wind shear into the picture, they get tilted. It keeps them from strengthening, sometimes tears them apart. There's a little bit of shear out ahead of it associated with an upper level low right now, but in particular, you look to the Bahamas, very strong wind shear on the fringes of that high pressure area I showed you that's going to block Jerry. That will still be there once Jerry gets towards the Bahamas. That should help to weaken it. Along with that, there's lots of dry air in play now. You especially see it nosing into Florida here this morning, all the way down to the Yucatan. I do believe once it gets towards that, it will start to ingest that dry air further. There's a little pocket of dry air right ahead of Jerry right now, too. So both of those should sort of help to keep a lid on this thing as we head through the next couple days. And as such, the Hurricane Center's forecast only calls for this to reach Category 1 intensity as it moves to the west-northwest, then making that turn, weakening a bit thanks to the shear and thanks to the dry air, and then headed to the north. This will be another one to watch for Bermuda. Bermuda's right on the northern end of the cone. In fact, as I zoom in here, you can see where Bermuda is. So it will be a close call for Bermuda with that turn, but again, it's expected to stay well to the east of the United States. All indications are, at this point in time, this is not a threat to Florida and the U.S. We'll be watching it. We'll be watching this one, too, just to finish things off here. The other area of concern, a tropical wave moving towards the Caribbean. By the weekend, conditions become favorable for it to try to come together. Next name on the list would be Karen. And long-term outlooks for this also call for that to turn to the north, thanks to that weaker Atlantic ridge. But again, something we'll be watching and have a long time to do. Not something to worry about at this point in time, just something to track. So, takeaways. Umberto, over and done with. Headed out to sea. No further direct impacts to land now that it has moved past Bermuda. Unfortunately, Imelda continues to produce flooding rainfall in Texas through the day today, but conditions should steadily improve through Friday and the weekend. And then Jerry, we'll be watching it. It's expected to miss the northern Caribbean islands. It's expected to miss the Bahamas and the United States as well. So still active out there in the Atlantic. We'll have plenty more to talk about over the next couple days as well. So until next time, meteorologist Jim Dickey. Have a good day.